listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple and wherever you get your podcasts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today is an ADHD episode, and I have a special guest with me. And some of you on Twitter who are listening to my episodes may know this gentleman. His name is Jay, and he also suffers from ADHD and has gone through very similar situations and challenges with his own ADHD and getting diagnosed and some of his struggles that he goes through on a daily basis. And we're going to chat. So, hi, Jay. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. So tell me something. First off, when did you first realize that you, more than at the time that you had ADHD, when was it? When did you really know?
Actually, August of last year. So not too far back, pretty recent. And was just diagnosed this past December.
Excellent. Now, what kind of, when you were going through this, how long or what kind of questions did you have? Who did you first talk to when you were actually getting to the step of looking to get diagnosed?
Well, I do have a close friend that actually has it. So he was pretty helpful in identifying some of the symptoms when I brought them up. After that, I went and spoke to a counselor, talking to some things. And she suggested going to the ADD center in Mississauga, Ontario.
Right.
And that's where I went to get diagnosed.
Oh, excellent. So how long from the moment that you first talked to this counselor to the date that you were actually able to get diagnosed? How long was that in between?
About 3 months wait.
Okay. So what were your thoughts when the possibility was ADHD for your struggles? What were your thoughts that were going through your mind?
Honestly, it was like a light bulb went off. I started researching it just because of some feedback that I got on behaviors that I had, especially being I'm pretty fidgety. And I do have quite the temper when I'm upset. So I started looking at that, and if you Google fidgeting, the first thing that comes up really is ADHD. But once I kind of expanded that, and then saw the symptoms list in there, and like I said, it was like a light bulb went off, and I said, "Wait a minute, that's me."
Of course. Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you see the symptoms and you're going, oh, that sounds exactly like the way I am. And you're right, it's like a light bulb goes off, and that's that first step to getting to that diagnosis is something finally goes, this sounds exactly the way I am.
Right. And and during that process, from August through, I would say, through November, I really got more involved in the Twitter community of ADHD, and just seeing what people posted on there and how much I related, really pushed me to make sure that I was assessed properly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's extremely important, because you need to know exactly what is happening, and so that you can get the proper the proper help, whether it's the kind of medication that eventually you're gonna be on, or other means that the therapist or the counselor will suggest or recommend to assist to make things better for you, or like the symptoms occur less often.
Right.
Yeah. So what would you say is your strongest symptom for ADHD?
Definitely emotional dysregulation is up there. Emotions are like a roller coaster. My highs are pretty high and my lows are pretty low. I would also say my working memory is not really good. I forget a lot of
Right.
things. And definitely I fidget a lot. I'm fidgeting right now.
Yeah, I know that makes sense. I completely understand why. That's pretty understandable. I know I do that a lot whenever I'm making my episodes. I always seem to have something in my hands, or if I'm on the computer, I'm always flipping around on pages trying to find information while I'm recording. So sometimes you can hear the mouse clicking. Oh, yeah. What was some of the toughest questions or questions to answer that during your assessment, like when you were going through that?
So my assessment was different than what I saw some people talking about on Twitter, where they assemble family history and all those things, interview parents or whatever. The ADD Center actually has you go and do the TOVA test. I don't know if you have talked about that on your podcast.
Yeah, no.
No. So it's just a test. It's designed to be extremely boring and rate your attentiveness. And there's a target that's on the screen. There's two different targets, and when one specific target comes up, you press a button. So it rates kind of how much you're paying attention to there, and it's about 20 minutes for that. And then there was just a bunch of questions that they had on there, and they actually hooked me up to a machine and actually scanned my brain because they can see how brainwave patterns work. Because with an ADHD brain, certain brainwave patterns are very different. And then a week later, I had a follow-up interview, and that was about 2 hours with the psychologist that runs the center. And then that's when she started talking a lot about family history and behaviors and stuff. So it was a process, but it was interesting for sure.
Yeah, I bet. I know mine is coming up in April, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I've had a lot of different people say what is likely going to happen. And the one thing that I always keep thinking is that they're going to want to interview people who know me, to get a history besides my information and my history. They'll want someone else's input on it. So that didn't actually happen for you.
Well, she talked to my wife actually.
Okay.
So she was there to be able to speak to just some of my day-to-day behaviors,
right,
and just shed some light on that stuff. So.
Well, that's interesting. I guess I know what to look forward to then. Okay. So do any of your friends or family struggle with understanding the diagnosis that you have ADHD?
You know what? My wife's been pretty supportive. She's bought some books and read up on it. I've got a good friend that's always there when I need to kind of talk to somebody that I know is going through the same thing. And my parents, it's a work in progress still. I don't think they don't really understand ADHD. Unfortunately, like a lot of people don't, but like I said, a work in progress, and hopefully they'll understand a little more as we go forward.
Did you struggle with telling them, or was it something that you just did and said, so be it?
No, it wasn't too much of a struggle. I mean, conversations like that can be uncomfortable anyway, for me. but it was, it was a good sit down chat, where we actually talked about it for a bit on Christmas Eve, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting way of spending Christmas Eve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Huh. So, I know you mentioned at the beginning that your temper seems to get, quickly to be activated. So, would you say that is one of your most difficult issues that you struggle with on a day-to-day basis?
It can be. Not every day is the same. So, I have good
Right.
days and bad days, and um, when when I'm overwhelmed, it gets to be difficult. But I would also say, probably motivation. That procrastination piece is a big one, especially at work. Constantly putting off
Right.
the bigger tasks. So I'm trying to tackle those first now, but when it's something that takes a lot of effort, it's hard to motivate myself to do it.
Makes sense. Yes, I completely understand. I know I have days in a row where I know I need to clean, and I just don't. It's like I don't have motivation to do it because I'm totally disinterested, and it's eventually I push myself enough to get there. But yeah, I leave things until it either gets to the point where I have no choice or someone else is telling me to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Relatable.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the coping strategies or adaptations that you've used or introduced to help make your life easier with this?
I would say that probably the two biggest ones would be, at work. I make a to-do list every day, even if it's the
Right.
same things that I'm writing on there every single day. The same, even if it's a task that I have to do every single day, I make sure I write it on there just so that I don't get sidetracked or distracted and forget to do it. So that's definitely helpful. The other thing that we've done is, by the entrance to our garage, which is where we usually come in and out, we actually painted a chalkboard wall on there. So we can write big notes and things not to forget, appointments or whatever. So I'm seeing that every day when I come in and out of the house.
That's obviously very helpful because it's right there in front of you. You really can't
Yeah.
miss that.
Yeah.
Wow. So how long, who thought of that? Was that you or was that your wife?
It was her. That was all her idea.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
So how long have you had that for?
Probably since about September, I think.
Okay.
So 5 months or so.
Interesting. Well, that's actually sounds like a really interesting idea. We've got a few things that we use as well. Like we have a little chalkboard, and that is in the kitchen, and we also put notes, like little sticky notes, at the entrances to where we go out. And I think the biggest thing I've dealt with or tried to make my life easier is just have a routine that I built. And it wasn't a simple routine. It's something that's been built over the years. And so it took a while to get it into where it's just automatic. You never forget something unless, and if it ever changes, if something during the day changes, or a new something is introduced that's new, there is a bit of a struggle to remember it. So
yes, for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful having it written down. Have you ever had a moment like where you forget to write it? Like, what's the key to making it consistent or to work? Is it to write it down at the end of the night, or is it just like how does it work well?
We try to write it down as it happens, or as things come up. We write them down. We also have kids, so they get involved and they write on there too, and they make it fun because they draw pictures on the board and just make it interesting and catches your eye a little bit when there's a puppy dog or something drawn on the board. But yeah, we try to get it on the board as quickly as possible. Now, my wife doesn't have ADHD, so she's also better at remembering some of those things. So if we can't get it right away, she tends to be able to add it to the list.
Right, of course. Makes sense. Yeah, it's helpful when you're not the only person that's dealing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I lived on my own for quite a while, and I relied on myself alone to have to remember. And often I would forget things. And that's what happens when there's nobody else around. You truly have to rely on yourself.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
lot harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, now, so how has knowing that you have ADHD changed your life? And do you feel any relief since your diagnosis?
I do feel relief. It's changed my life because I look back at my past and I look at myself now and realize that the things that I struggled with are not character flaws.
Right.
I'm not forgetful because I'm uncaring. I don't struggle with, my emotions because I'm rude or a jerk.
Right.
And as a kid, I wasn't, hyperactivity. I was a pretty busy kid. My nickname when I was a kid was Racy JC. So, I look back on that now and not think I was just an annoying kid. Well, no, it was ADHD, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm certainly relieved, but also being diagnosed in my 30s has been a hard pill to swallow because you feel like you've missed so much time being able to treat this and all the blows that this has had on your self-esteem has been hard as well.
Yeah, I totally understand. I know where you're coming from. I'm in my early 40s, and I'm almost there. And every so often I keep thinking, and my girlfriend even says so, that if someone had known, or if I had been able to realize this in my 20s, I would have had almost 20 years of being able to figure things out or be on medication or just know, and then could have changed the way my life was. Yeah, I totally get that.
And I had a moment where I remember sitting at home and just thinking, like, who even am I?
Right.
I don't even know who I am. I don't know myself, but I'm learning. I'm learning for sure.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. It takes some time, like this diagnosis is the first step. And there's obviously there are going to be some challenges ahead, of course. And I think the big one is, and I say this a lot in all the research I've done, is finding the right medication is a challenge, because they may put you on something and it feels like it's working, and then all of a sudden something doesn't seem right, and then you got to try something else. Or they may put you on a mix, like they give you a stimulant with a non-stimulant. Like you have to find the right balance to make it work.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a good thing, because I know the first time first time I used the medication, I noticed a difference. I noticed a difference in my ability to focus and my ability to feel confident in choices that I made and in daily life activities. I just felt way more confident, and it just having that alone was enough to motivate me to try and find the right mix and continue on to get a diagnosis, because I knew that this was definitely going to help. But I also realized it wasn't the only step. Like, it wasn't the only thing to do. Like, there's other areas in our lives that we can adjust, like changing our diet or exercising more. Like, I read that you work out almost every day of the week.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I noticed, especially with being restless, if I don't work out for a few days, I have a hard time even just sitting still at night. But I try to work out probably six times a week.
Pretty good. Yeah, that's definitely, and it is helpful. Like you said, it makes your system or your brain kind of feel like it's accomplished something, or like you've accomplished something,
Right.
and you're not as, well, I guess, fidgety, or as where you can't sit still.
Yeah. And, and I used to run a lot when I was younger, and I always thought that in my head, I was doing it to, battle stress, but little did I know it wasn't really that. It was helping me with my ADHD symptoms.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to, in a way, it's nice to know that that's one of those things, now why certain things that you did in your past was occurring.
Right.
It's nice, yeah. All right. Was it easy to get the help to get diagnosed? Like to find the right person who said so?
Yeah. So I don't have a family doctor. So kind of once I started talking to a counselor, then that's when, they recommended, rather than waiting, because it can take quite a while to get yourself into a family doctor.
Right.
That's where she recommended the ADD center in Mississauga. And then from there, it was just a phone call and setting up an appointment to get in there. It was quite the wait. They were backlogged, so it was 3 months. But I know in other countries, I think the UK, the wait can be at least 6 months, if not longer. So I think here it's not too bad in Canada.
Yeah, I know in late December, when I finally got a referral, he said that it would be 4 to 6 months, and he wanted me to see a psychiatrist because he was concerned about other possible things that might be with it, and he wanted to rule them out. But the psychiatrist is capable of giving me the diagnosis, and so mid-April is almost 5 months. And that's quite a long time. And, you're trying to figure things out. I'm sure in the 3 months that you were waiting, there was probably a lot of, like, where you just feel like you wish you could get it over with, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. And especially when you're going through this as an adult, and people don't understand why you want to rush it and why you want to get it over with. But
Yeah.
because I've been living with this already my entire life, I just want some answers now. It's not something that I just contracted, let's say, right? It's something I was born with, and waiting, 37 years, I think, is long enough. I've been patient enough, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I know it's one of those things that, like, this kind of leads into my next question. I might as well ask, what do you think in Canada needs to change for those to get diagnosed, or to have access to the proper healthcare for this?
Well, I think there's a lot of issues with our medical system, but I think that's probably everywhere. The wait, if you don't have a family doctor, can be huge. I've been trying since August to get into a family doctor, which is why I was able to go the other route to the place in Mississauga. And then I would say, even better education around ADHD, just to fight the stigma. You see a lot of it on Twitter. In my day-to-day conversations with family members, and they don't understand it, and they start raising concerns about even medication and what that could mean. And I just see a lot of misinformation and ignorance. It's a hard word, but that's really what it is, right? So
Absolutely, yeah. I know there's a lot of people out there that, like, I am afraid to say much about it too, because I don't know about how your parents, how they grew up and how they were raised, but mine, stuff like this isn't exactly a normal thing for them on a daily basis, or even at any point. And talking about any kind of a mental health issue, especially for a man, is a real hard thing to discuss with anybody, and to put it out in the open and expect to have people feel, to be supportive and to understand, and hoping that nobody is thinking any negative, or feels, like just spreading misinformation, or not telling, or having an open mind is extremely difficult for someone who's trying to get diagnosed, or who has ADHD and has to deal with it on a daily basis. It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I haven't exactly told my parents, because it's more of how they're going to react, rather than whether they're going to support me or not. Like, that initial reaction is always that part that you, like, I don't know about you for yourself, but that's the one thing that I always worry about, is that initial reaction, if it's going to be a positive one.
Yeah, or what kind of support you might get, even if it's a positive reaction. And you touched on, the piece where, boys, they grow up and they're told to just, boys don't cry,
hide their emotion,
just walk it off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So,
Exactly.
you grow up and then you're a man, and it's hard to be vulnerable with people. But especially with your parents, who have always kind of given you that message of, just walk it off, just suck it up, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've had to deal with that my entire life too. I know exactly what you're talking about. So before this diagnosis, like obviously a while ago, and when you first met your wife, did you tell her right away, or did you even realize what was going on? Like, how long did it take before you told her?
Well, I've known her for a long time. We've been together for 16 years.
Great. Excellent.
Yeah. So then, even she wasn't aware. I wasn't aware. Neither of us were aware of this, which, now we see has created, some issues between us, because of, not understanding, why I am in certain ways the way I am. But like I said, she's, reading books and asking questions, and, we've sat and watched some YouTube videos and things, just to understand kind of the way I am, and why I am the way I am, and how to kind of work with that and cope with it as well. And I think it's been a positive discussion, but it's certainly caused some issues over the years.
Yeah, like I understand. I completely understand what you're saying. Like a neurotypical person who doesn't have ADHD or any other kind of disability, they meet someone, or they get to know, before they get to know somebody who has something like ADHD, the idea or the thought that somebody has a problem remembering tasks, or forgetting to complete a task, and then they move on to something else, or they get completely distracted, and it could be an hour later possibly, and all of a sudden they're going, oh, I forgot to do this important chore, this task. And then that person is thinking to themselves, I don't understand how that's a possibility. Like, how does that work? Like they just don't quite get it, right?
Yeah. That's a line I heard a lot, was how could you forget that? How could you possibly not remember that? I think one big thing that was always a pain point for her was she'd now and then make me a lunch, which I would then never remember to take to work.
Yeah.
And I remember a comment one time was, why do I make you this if you can't care enough to take it to work? So, and that wasn't too long ago. I probably maybe a year ago or so. But now as I'm going through this journey of being diagnosed with ADHD, I'm understanding, why I would forget that lunch. And she knows now that it wasn't that I didn't care. It's not that I didn't appreciate that she made me a lunch. It's just that I didn't remember when I was on my way out the door. So
exactly. Yeah, that's
one thing we've started to do though is I will put my car keys in my lunch bag. So now I
then you definitely can't forget it.
Yeah. So just little tips and tricks like that we're learning. So
yeah, exactly. I know that I remember when I first was dealing with this constant forgetting something, I would be rushing out the door, and I always felt like I didn't have enough time, like I was late, or I was like I just couldn't get out the door on time, and I would forget. I was always forgetting at least one or two items. I have a key card that I would need to get into the building, or I would forget my phone, or I'd forget my keys. And I always had this, and it was because I would come home the day before, and I would put my key card in a different location, or I wouldn't put it away like in the right spot. So the next morning, I'm rushing around, getting dressed and trying to get out the door. And I don't even think, do I have my car keys? Do I have my key card? Do I have my phone? It's just get out the door. And like the keys in the lunch bag, I have a setup where everything, I automatically put everything that I know I'm going to need at the door, or somewhere where you can't miss it. Like it's impossible to miss. And like the lunch bag, you have to have your keys to go out the door. So that means you're going to automatically remember your lunch. So it's an adaptation to minimize the chance of forgetting something. Yeah,
for sure. And I have, with the job that I have a laptop that my work provides me. And when I got this job, it was the first time I ever had that, and I used to forget it at home a lot because I wasn't used. Sometimes I would just leave it at work. Sometimes I would have it at home. So I started creating the habit of, whether I needed it at night or not, take it home. That way I would never forget it, because it just became routine. I still forget it now and then, but not nearly as much.
Yeah, no, I completely see that. Yeah, I know I have a laptop that I got to take with me, and I have cards that I need to use in order to get into my building. And last fall, there were 2 days in the same week that I forgot it. And it was because I didn't put it in the sweater that I normally use. I put it in my work pants, and I took my work pants off, and I was so distracted I didn't even think, they're in my pants. Put them back in the sweater, because you take that sweater every day, and sure enough, I totally forget, and you never think about it for the entire day, leading up to the next morning. And next thing you know, you're walking out the door, and you get to your building, and you're like, I don't have my car key or my key card. I can't get in. And you know exactly where they are at the moment, but you didn't notice it for the entire night leading up to the morning.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. People have to make sure that they're doing little things to minimize or to avoid having that kind of a problem. Like with the lunch bag, or however you make sure that you're remembering your laptop. Like it's routine. There's a lot of routine, and there's a lot of minimalizing adaptations that we create to minimize problems that occur. Like, because I'm sure, like yourself, you're dealing with a lot of things that are going on in your mind as you wake up. And I don't know if you have coffee in the morning and eat your breakfast, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and remembering everything is really difficult. Like there's so much going on in your head as you're trying to get out the door to go to work.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's a lot to keep track of. So when things are in their place, it's just easier as a routine. You just by habit go to those places and pick them up. So
yeah, exactly. It's so true. Okay, so I know I've been doing my career for about 11 years now. Well, this particular job, and the struggles at the beginning, that it took months just to get things into a pattern so that I didn't forget. And it didn't, but it was never 100%. There was always one day, whether you just didn't have a good night's sleep, or you were stressed, or there was something really important coming up, or whatever, it just caused you to miss that beat just a little bit, enough that you forgot something.
Yeah, or even getting out of the routine for whatever reason. Like if you go on, you take a week off for holidays and you're not used to going to work and grabbing these things every day. I usually find that my first day back to work, I'm either extra careful that I don't forget things, or I, get out the door on autopilot and I've forgotten, my work keys or my phone or something at home.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I know. I take a couple of weeks off every year, and that first day or two, it's a lot of work just to get back into doing it a certain way so that you don't forget something, or it feels like before you left.
Yeah.
I know those are rough days. So what would you say to others who are listening to this, that are struggling with ADHD, what you've learned up to today about this?
I would say, your brain, if you're not diagnosed and you're reading things on like Twitter, or articles about it, or you're watching YouTubers talk about it, and you're relating to what they're talking about, to trust that. I know I've tweeted out about imposter syndrome, especially going into my diagnosis, and how I was really anxious and I felt like I was wasting everybody's time. And I know the Twitter community was, you got this, and really supportive, and that certainly was helpful. But I wish that I had been more confident in what I felt and what I believed. And I think that that's probably the best thing I could say, was that, like I said, you know your brain better than anybody else. And if you don't get the answer that you're looking for, you can always try again. It might take time, but you can get, a second opinion, and, maybe find somebody that's more knowledgeable or more understanding, more supportive, that may be able to help you as well. So.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. You just, if somebody says no the first time, that doesn't mean that it's over. You can always look for another person, or another department or location that has a better doctor. I had that. My problem, that was my exact issue. I got a doctor. My family doctor that I had been seeing for a long time unexpectedly retired 6 months before I went to go see him, and I had to find a new doctor. And the guy that I went to see was not a very good doctor. He didn't ask really any questions. He just listened to me. I told him what I thought I knew, and he gave me too much medication. And he didn't even do a referral. And it literally took 6-7 months for me to finally say enough is enough and find a new doctor. And it was amazing, the difference. The second doctor was 100 times better. He asked all the questions. He had his doubts, but he was also on my side. He didn't say, I don't believe you. He just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something else, right? You don't want to accidentally think it's one thing, and then all of a sudden learn that maybe there's another problem or another issue that's beside it that's causing some issues. If you don't know, you're not getting the answers if you're not having somebody be thorough.
That's right. And you know what? And not everybody that thinks that they have ADHD is going to have ADHD. Like you said, it could be something else. It could be anxiety. It could be depression. It could be something else. But I like what you said about, if you need them on your side. And I think whether you go to a doctor, or a psychologist or psychiatrist, and you don't feel that they're on your side, it's time to find a new one.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, do you think that there's anything else that maybe at some point you'd like to look at, like as far as a diagnosis, like of a second, how do they put it, comorbility or like an additional maybe diagnosis that you're curious about, or do you think that it's just ADHD?
I would not be surprised if I also struggled with anxiety, and I think that's pretty common with people that grow up undiagnosed, because you don't know what you're dealing with, and you start learning to mask and hide your symptoms and change these behaviors about yourself just to please other people. And like I said, I know it's taken a hit to my self-esteem, and I struggle with that on a daily basis. But my focus right now is just, I've just been diagnosed with the ADHD. I'm looking for treatment methods. I want to pursue the medication, which without a family doctor, it's the whole thing. But and I'm hoping that as I kind of come to more terms with my ADHD and how that's affected me in the past, I'm hoping that'll help me work through what I think are some anxiety issues that I have.
Yeah, it's always important. Absolutely. I know my biggest problem today is wondering what is, if like when I have an issue or a situation that comes up, and it's like between my girlfriend and I, whether it is like if I'm having an ADHD moment, or if I'm struggling with anxiety, or if I've got a trauma event occurring, or it makes you question which is which, and what, like, it really makes you kind of start to second guess yourself in some ways, because you just don't, unless you know for sure that you definitely have something. Like if you don't know for sure that you've got ADHD, and you're thinking, maybe I have an anxiety disorder, maybe I have got trauma that I'm not aware of, like, or maybe it's even somewhere on this spectrum of autism, possibly. Like you could really take a major hit to your self-esteem and to your self-confidence, and it could really affect your ability to lead a good normal life, or at least have a positive outlook.
Yeah, for sure. I think that when it comes to stuff like this, I think labels are important. I think being able to put a name to something that you have just helps you understand it more, helps you get the help that you feel that you need, and just helps. I mean, the whole point is just to try to make your day-to-day easier, right? And without a proper diagnosis of any syndrome or disorder, it's hard to take the steps in that direction.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get one diagnosis, and all of a sudden your outlook and that the thoughts and the questions become clearer, and now you have a path in front of you, and you know what you need to do to get there. And now that you've got a diagnosis, it should hopefully be easier to get to the next stage.
Right. And you know what? And ADHD isn't who I am, right? It's just part of who I am. But exactly. Understanding how that affects who I am, it helps me know myself even better, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It does make a difference. Oh, well, okay. I guess that is it for now for this episode. Thank you really so much for coming on. This is extremely helpful, and I think my listeners will get a lot out of this, as hopefully it will give them some motivation or increase their confidence to get that diagnosis, or to face that possibility or that unknown.
yeah, no, thank you for having me. Like you said, it was fun. It was fun to do.
Yeah, it definitely was fun. It's nice to have another point of view, because the more people that you learn have ADHD, and you learn about what they deal with, and the things that they do and how they handle it each and every day, it gives someone a much broader sense of what's possible for them.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Jay. Hopefully you get to get some the ability to get some medication, or however you get to do the next step here right away, so that they can continue getting improvement and life gets easier.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Okay, everybody, that was Jay. Well, that's the end of my episode. You can check me out. I am on Twitter. My handle is ADHD and CPTSD. My website is www.livingwithadhdandcptsd.ca. And yeah, Jay and I are both on Twitter. So if you would like to come online and message myself or message Jay, we've got a lot that we can offer for advice or for information, which is definitely helpful. But yeah, that's it. All right, guys, I will talk to you next time. Okay, bye, everybody.